You're also watching The Pulse here on Joy News. Now, this...
sports now.
Activates its extreme heat plan, and part of Spain is feared to reach 42 degrees Celsius. About April last year, we reported on the heat wave, which was thought to be the worst in a long time then. Well, how is this year's compared? With our partners DW, he's standing by with more from Germany. Hi, Thomas.
Hello, Gifty. Nice to be back with you on this very hot day here in Germany.
I know, right? Tell us how bad the situation is and how it compares to what happened in 2018.
For Germany and for parts of Europe, this is unusual. I mean, temperatures above 35 may be common in other parts of the world, in Africa, for example, or in Latin America or in Australia. But Europe, and in particular Northern Europe, is more accustomed to the cold than to the extreme heat. And I'll just give you a very concrete example. Most homes and offices here have heaters for the winter months, but they do not necessarily have air conditioning for this very hot weather. So this just gives you an idea of how different or how unusual the situation is here in Europe. You mentioned some of the figures, and you mentioned also some of the implications. Obviously, what authorities are most concerned about is people's health, warning them that they have to take extra precautions when it comes to going out, for example, and being in cities, which cities are more vulnerable than other parts of the country. But at the same time, authorities are concerned about the implications on Germany's agriculture because of the lack of rain, or also wildfires that at this time of the year, in particular when it is so hot, could be very dangerous. Now, you ask how it compares to other heat waves, and that's a very important question, because although this is unusual, although Europe is not necessarily accustomed to this very hot weather, in particular in this part of the continent, this is not the first time that Europe has a heat wave, and it's not the first time that heat waves are also potentially dangerous. In fact, in 2003, for example, there was one which was very dangerous in France, where many people actually died. And last year, we here on this program discussed as well the heat wave here in Germany. And this is all to say that scientists have been describing this as a broader phenomenon, saying that heat waves of this magnitude are becoming more and more common in Europe, and they become also a sign that the Earth's climate is changing.
And I was just going to ask, what specific reasons are being assigned to this rather unusual weather pattern?
Well, what's being said from meteorologists, let's say, is that this is simply warm air moving from Africa to Central Europe, but that is only part, as I say, of the explanation. This is seen by scientists, again, as further evidence of global warming, and as such, scientists, but also other people, have been asking authorities to deal with this issue, not only by implementing concrete measures now that could help people in the streets when the weather is above 35 degrees Celsius, but also long-term measures that could deal with this problem, because, as I just mentioned 1 second ago, this is seen in a way, if you will, as a trend, as something that is happening more and more often, as we saw last year. Also, some of the hottest summers in Europe were in recent years. So this is something that authorities have to deal with, obviously, urgently now to help people, but also in the long term as well, because this is seen as a long-term phenomenon.
And it boils down to climate change. But how then is it impacting businesses, both positive and negative implications?
Well, obviously, it's only just started, this heat wave, and in fact, the summer in Europe has just started, but we can also see from previous heat waves that there are, as you say, negative consequences, but also in some cases positive consequences. Negative consequences in particular for the agriculture sector. If there is no rain, or if there are wildfires, those are clear, concrete negative implications. There are also clear, concrete negative implications on people's health, in particular vulnerable people. We're talking here about children or older people. They have to take care in particular when it comes to these heat waves. But there are also other industries in the past that have profited from such a hot temperature. I'm talking about, for example, the beer industry, or other industries that produce cold beverages or ice creams. They have in the past also benefited from this. There have also been reports that the wine industry in some particular cases tends to benefit from dry and hot weather. but this is still too early to say how this will impact Europe as a whole, because, as I said, summer has only just started here.
Well, I'm sure that it will be of great benefit to air conditioning companies as well, and that's if people are going to go in for air conditioners, to air conditioners to make it easier for them. But this may be a weather issue, Thomas, but it has everything to do with politics and the big issue of global warming. Tell us how politicians in Europe are dealing with this problem.
You're absolutely right, Gifty, when you point to the fact that, yes, obviously this is something to do with the current weather patterns or climate patterns here in Europe. Yes, it has to do with extreme heat, and people have to take concrete measures now, but it is also something that goes well beyond the, if you will, anecdotal evidence of whether people go to the lake or they don't go to the lake, or whether they have ice cream or they have beer or things like that. It is above all also a political problem, and it is a political problem here in Germany. In Germany, there was a recent survey which asked people what the most important challenge for politicians was nowadays, and the majority said that the biggest challenge for politicians was fighting climate change. In Germany, in other parts of Europe, you have also seen the rise of green parties, and as you know, green parties here in Europe have fighting climate change as their key element, as the most important policy they want to pursue. You also have many young people, not only here in Europe, in other parts of the world as well, protesting every Friday, the so-called Fridays for Future movement, asking politicians to deal more actively when it comes to fighting climate change. So it is becoming a very urgent problem in Europe. Here in Germany in particular, the German Chancellor had been seen internationally as a sort of climate chancellor, pushing for international agreements when it comes to the climate, but at the same time she has been criticized here in Germany for falling short when it comes to some of Germany's own goals. There has been criticism on that respect, and there has also been debates at a wider European level, because countries have different priorities, countries have different industries and interests. So it has become very difficult for European leaders to find common ground when it comes to fighting climate change.
And I am just wondering how you are dealing with it back there yourself.
Well, I am drinking obviously a lot, probably more than what I drink normally. I'm also trying to stay indoors, although as I said, the fact that many rooms and many homes do not have air conditioning does not make the situation much easier. And I am also, by the way, Gifty, trying to advise people that I see that they also should take extra precautionary measures, because this is something that could affect them very seriously. So obviously it is something that is not only for politicians to deal with or for authorities to deal on a local level, it's also for everyone in particular to take measures, because this is a very serious issue as well.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I'm sure that for the Ghanaians and other Africans who live in Europe, they probably will be able to deal with it easier because they're used to that sort of climate around here. But also, they may have acclimatized to the weather there, so they will have some problems. But good enough, I'm sure that leaders will be able to work out something, and people will be safe in this very hot weather. Thomas, thank you so much. Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW, joining us all the way from Germany with more on that heat wave there. If you live in any parts of Europe, and we know that most of you watch us from there, do stay safe and look out for your family and friends. This is still The Pulse with me, Gifty, and our